Hi, welcome to another great episode of the Africa Property Podcast brought to you by Seso Global. And today we are here with a great leader in tech, Mr. Eric Wood, and he's the founder of Africa Land Developers, and he's an American Proptech expert living in Ghana with his family who is committed to creating affordable financing for property developers in Africa to boost the growth of emerging real estate markets. It's great to have you today on the show, Eric. Hope you are doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you, Victor. It's great to be on. Thank you for having me.
Yes, great. So we'll just get straight into it. So you're the founder and CEO of Africa Land Developers. Could you tell us a little more about Africa Land Developers and how your organization seeks to transform real estate in Africa, basically?
Yeah, sure. Africa Land Developers was started because of three really crucial trends that were coming together at the same time. The first is the massive population growth happening in Africa. So Africa is projected to continue to grow over the next, several years, 50 to 70 years. It's going to surpass Asia, where both China and India are in terms of population size. So it's by far the fastest growing area in the world. It's also home to some of the fastest growing economies. It has the uh, a middle class that's expanding at the quickest pace, and more people have discretionary spending. So these dynamics are creating a huge demand on real estate. There's massive housing shortages throughout the continent. More and more people can afford housing. There's more and more people needing housing and other real estate usage, but not enough real estate is being developed. And so that's the third trend, which is underdeveloped capital markets are not able to support real estate development in Africa. A vast majority of development happens 100% through cash. So there's not banking or financing options available. And so developers are constrained by what they can fund through cash or through what's known as off plan sales here, getting people to buy housing units before they're built. But you can understand the risk and trepidation for consumers to venture into that. So we saw a big opportunity to bring private capital into the market here where there's a massive need, huge demand. And so we're filling that need with private investment capital, creating an asset class for investors in Africa and outside of Africa to invest in African real estate without taking on ownership, which has been the traditional way to invest in real estate here is through ownership. But there's a way to take advantage of the opportunity without taking on the burden of ownership. We do that through Africa Land Developers, and we've made it very, very simple for investors from anywhere in the world to get involved in investing in real estate here and to receive some of the benefits that come from investing in an emerging market and some of the emerging markets in Africa. So that was the idea behind it, and that's what we're here doing. We meet with developers. We're developing a good, strong network of developers that we look for those who have deep experience. We look for some of the best projects to back, and then we bring in investors and make it possible for them to participate.
That's amazing. That's great to hear that this ecosystem is being built at a time where it's most opportune and we need it the most. So could you tell us about how the partnership with Cecil Global came about, and what are the key factors that made it a good fit for what you are trying to do with Africa Land Developers?
Yeah, well, it's a very natural fit. I mean, what Cecil's doing is filling another urgent need on the real estate side, which is a platform where people can access, a marketplace platform. Those exist in developed markets through different means. In the U.S., where I'm from, there's the MLS system, there's Zillow, there's other marketplace platforms that aggregate real estate purchasing opportunities. That doesn't really exist in Africa, and there's other challenges um, that underlie that, land titling and things like that that CESO is helping to solve. So recognizing that development funding is one side of it. Once the demand's there, funding's one side, but the other side is you need you need the right marketplace structure in place for it to work. And so Seso's solving some of those other problems. And so it was just a very natural fit. They're already in the market, providing a marketplace for developers. Well, the same developers that they're helping solve the marketplace issue with are the same developers that we can help solve the funding issue with. And so we naturally are working with the same people. So it was a very natural fit for us to work together.
That's great. And so you're coming together with Seso and your other partners to raise, you're seeking to raise up to $50 million in funding over the next 5 years and more across multiple countries, but Ghana and Nigeria first, and probably expanding. So I just want you to sort of describe or let the viewers kind of know how much of an impact this will be. Like what that 50 million can do in terms of changing the landscape, more like you talked about creating, once there's the demand, then you have that. How would that kind of change the space on the ground in terms of more estates, more affordable options? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, just to be clear, I mean it's a small drop in the bucket of what's needed. So we
Okay,
do
okay.
have intentions to deploy at least 50 million over the next 5 years. But across Africa, it's much more than that. And so our efforts will
Mm,
hopefully inspire others to get involved. It's a big market,
yes.
and there are others doing some exciting things as well. But there's certainly room for a lot of people to come in, and our role is just a small one. But even as a small role, as anyone familiar with real estate knows, there's many benefits that come from the jobs that are created in
Mm,
allowing for more development for
exactly.
both material suppliers, the laborers who help to complete the project. There's a number of jobs that are created through real estate development, and then in easing some of the real estate constraints, the housing being the biggest one. Um, there's just in Ghana alone, there's 2.5 million units needed to meet the housing need. And Ghana's a small country in Africa. It's much bigger in Nigeria and Kenya and Rwanda's one. I mean, almost every country in Africa is suffering from housing shortages. So you increase supply, that can obviously help to solve that. Prices will start to potentially come down. We're specifically focused on working with developers who do a number of different projects, but affordable housing is a big focus of ours. Those working on developing projects that are affordable, so that more people can access housing. So you'll see that effect as well, and that's obviously the most impactful one. As people have a place to live, they can be more productive. They can focus more on education, and then ultimately, it's something that can help lift the entire communities and societies and help with the economic development we're all hoping to continue to see happening here in Africa.
Yeah, that's a great vision. Definitely one that would do a lot of help and or have resonating and sustainable effects on our society, I believe. So what criteria would do you use, does ALD use, um to identify verified developers? And how will you ensure that the investments are used properly or appropriately? So basically, what are your checks and balances and your due diligence process?
Okay. Well, let me answer the first question first, and then make sure I don't forget the second. So the way we verify and identify these contractors is through their previous experience. So we don't work with first time developers. The developers we work with have to have a minimum of 5 years development experience. We review all of their previous work. We talk to people they've worked with. We do background checks on who they are and the quality of their work. And then, of course, we'll do that a similar vetting process for the project that's being proposed. So we'll look at its proposal area, the site plan. We'll do our own comps to ensure that we believe it will sell for what they're projecting. We actually run our own models on the entire deal, so we're very thorough with what we look at in getting our confidence. And in fact, we actually put our own money, not just other investors' money. We put our own money into all the deals we do to show that we've got skin in the game. We've done our due diligence. We've done our homework. We believe in it because of what we've seen with the developers' working experience and history, and the project itself that we've done due diligence on. The way we ensure kind of the checks and balances is we typically release funds in tranches as milestones are met. So we're not giving developers a check up front. We'll fund the project over time in phases as the need arises, and then we are being here in Africa can go on site to see the progress and verify that things are progressing as uh, as expected and as is explained to us. And so we're aligning the funding with the progress of the project to ensure that things are progressing as they should be.
Okay, well, so that's one of you mentioned being on the ground and also, unique aspects of your work, which is running your own models. Could you just speak just a little more about how technology fits in with what you do and the role of it in it will play in evolving ALD as you move forward?
Well, I mean, just to be perfectly honest, there's not a lot of technology behind it. The technology we deploy and we use is models. That's kind of the secret sauce. Is it's just in
Yeah.
how we run the model, the assumptions we use, the way we verify those assumptions, um, the way that we can and will use more technology is really just about aggregating data. The more data we
Mhm.
have available, the easier it is to access through platforms like Seso, then the more
Exactly.
confident we can be in our inputs. Beyond that, real estate development and real estate analyzing is really just a
It-
manual work. You can't necessarily get
mm,
around it. So
mm,
so it's just all in, and the models and the inputs. Technology can help with the efficiency of those inputs, but until things get there, we're on the ground gathering information we need to make sure that we're feeling confident with the kind of inputs that we're putting into our model, the kind of assumptions that we're making, and that those line up with what we're seeing on the ground.
okay, that's definitely that's great and very practical. So, but speaking of Proptech, we mentioned that you have a history in tech. Could you just speak a little more about that? Your background in tech, what you did before you came to ALD, and also how you see Proptech evolving real estate or transforming real estate in Africa in the future.
Sure. My the previous company that I had founded was called Dwello. It was a software platform for managing connected devices inside of multifamily buildings, apartment buildings. So we worked with large apartment developers in the U.S. to help deploy connected systems like locking systems, lighting systems, thermostat, HVAC systems that connected those together to allow control at a property level, as well as the ability to assign and give control to an individual resident who would be occupying. So, what sometimes might be called a smart building or smart apartment. So that was my previous company that I worked on for several years before it was acquired by another company, and it was after that acquisition that I got pulled or I came here to Ghana. I came here to pursue the opportunities here because of what I was exposed to there, working with these large developers. I saw how important it is to make sure that what you're building fills demand. Real estate's
Yeah.
no different than any other product. You have to be solving problems for people. You have to be meeting a demand. And knowing what was happening here in Africa, there's certainly a large demand. So that's where my interest took me. In terms of how technology might impact real estate development here in Africa, I think the issues facing Africa are different than what a market like the U.S. is facing, where property developers are looking for the next best amenity, and so a smart apartment is interesting. There's certainly people that want nice amenities here, but the problems plaguing the real estate space in a lot of markets in Africa are much more important to solve, and those problems primarily do with land land titles, land title
Yeah.
transfers, and then entitlement and permitting processes. It's very, very paper based right now, and it makes it extremely difficult to verify land ownership and to move quickly through a development process. If I have a piece of land, it could take years just to sort out who actually owns it because there's no clear record available. So my hope is that's where the focus is on technology. I think it would be unwise to try to leapfrog that and jump into bringing in connected systems into apartment buildings. Not that that's not a need here as well, but the bigger needs are really having to do with data ownership, some of the more basic things that as we get those things solved, it's going to help the process of real estate development move along more smoothly.
Okay, that's great. And I guess in that sense, the work that Cecil is doing is aligning with what you are doing as well and your thoughts right now, because Cecil has been working, extensively with blockchain to kind of digitize the land registry system in Ghana, and has had
Yep.
some experience with it in South Africa. So that's definitely
Yep.
very interesting to hear.
And that's
Yeah,
that's a great application, I think, of blockchain. Most of the
yeah,
time, we associate it with cryptocurrencies, but out here,
exactly.
we're facing a problem that Seso's solving with a very very useful application of blockchain here to help with the
Yeah.
land titling and land registrations, and it can just have a huge impact. So I'm very excited about what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, that's great. So, can you discuss, Eric, some of the challenges of investing in real estate in West Africa? And I mean, I think you've spoken to this how ALD is working on that, but in general, what are some of the challenges you have encountered in the investment process? For development in,
Yeah,
in
sure. I mean,
West.
the nice thing about investing with us is we remove all of those
Yes,
challenges. We make it very simple.
exactly.
But the challenge is on the ground here, if you were to venture off into investing on your own, is most investing does not happen through transactions that turn around very quickly. So investing involves purchasing a property, or in some cases, there's companies doing fractional ownership. So you can purchase part of a property, but once you take ownership to something, you have to deal with operating and managing the property. And there's not a lot of good operational or management companies here in Ghana and other parts of West Africa yet. So you're just taking on the burden of ownership without a lot of the support of ownership. If you're looking at other ways to invest, you're dealing with the issues of how do I verify the project? How do I verify the developer? How do I make sure that the land is not going to run into ownership issues halfway through the project? And so there's just challenges that have to do with um, that side of things that an investor would have to be careful and cautious of. But in terms of an asset class that you can invest in a with ease, that just doesn't exist yet, hasn't been developed. So you just have to be ready to roll up your sleeves and do some work.
Yeah. And yeah, and I know if you could just give us like some bullet points. You mentioned investing with ALD and within the specific case of the deal room and with Cecil, could you just point out like the exact in simple terms like how ALD takes these away, like how it kind of takes these issues away.
Well, we do all of the identification and due diligence and all of the legwork behind it to begin
Yes.
with. We structure a deal that
Yeah.
allows for a finite time and exit. We target minimum IRRs. Our minimum target return is a 20% IRR, 20% annual IRR. And so we bring some structure behind it. We bring a finite term, and then we basically put everything together on a platform so that any investor can go into the platform and register for an account, review deals, pick ones they want to invest in. We bring the minimum investment threshold way down, so it's easier. Instead of having to buy a $250,000 townhome and then run it, I can invest in one of the best projects in Ghana for a minimum of $10,000. And so that threshold of entry is much lower. I'm still getting the same returns, but I'm not having to do any of the work. We basically handle all of that work for them. As the project's ongoing, we're monitoring the project, we're releasing the funds, we're holding the developer, accountable. Any issues that come up during the project, we're helping to work through. So we're shielding the investors from a lot of the challenges that come from investing in real estate. We make it very easy by finding the best deals, putting them on a platform that investors can view, pick the ones that they want to invest in, and it's as simple as placing your investment and then receiving regular updates and reports, and you're now part of that deal. And all you have to do is kind of watch as the thing progresses, and then when it's done, you get your distribution in return. So it's all about just simplifying the process and then making it available and accessible to investors through an online platform.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that explanation. And I think that will just really bring people and see how clear and structured this whole process is. So is there, maybe if you could, if it's possible, do you have a case study? Have you started investments in the deal room? Are there any projects that are going on right now? And what have your experiences been with these projects that you've started?
Yeah, we do have projects going on. So the experience has, I mean, and anyone can go to the deal room through Seso. You can go to africalanddevelopers.com and view for yourselves the ones that we have going on. We have one that was a contract deal. So there's two types of deals we do. One is the speculative deal where a developer has a piece of land, or they want to joint venture with the landowner and build something and then sell it. The other is where someone wants something built, and then they need a general contractor to a developer to build it for them, and so they're awarding a contract to get something built. So one of the ones we did is for the army of Ghana needed a barracks built, and so they had hired uh, a master developer for it, awarded them the contract, gave them a bunch of money, and now that master contractor is finding, because the project's so big, finding other contractors to come in and help build it. So one of our developers that we did due diligence on and felt really good about had the chance to take one of these smaller contracts. So but the way the contract works is you have to, as in any real estate development, you have to contract, you have to get a certain amount completed before you get your payment. And so they
Mhm.
needed to get 25% complete. Well, 25% of a $2 million contract is a pretty big chunk to get. So we're funding that project, and it's gone
Mhm.
very well. The developer has been extremely responsive. We've been to the site multiple times. They're always accommodating. They walk us through. They help us know what's going on. Been a smooth project. We've been very happy with. Both the Army and the master developer are both really thrilled with their work. They're actually wanting to award them two other contracts, and so it's gone along very well. The other deal we have up there is a resort that is actually 85% complete. It's a beach resort, one that we've been to, we love, we think they've done a phenomenal job, and the developer just needs a little bit of final funding to get the thing all finished up. And so we're going to be their partner on that one, and we think it's going to be a great addition to the leisure and hospitality industry here in Ghana, which is growing quite rapidly. So there is a huge need there. So we're very excited about that. And then in the pipeline, we got townhomes in downtown Accra. We got a number of projects that we're very excited about. So far the process has been moving along and working just as we had hoped.
Yes, that's great. And so you mentioned that the diversity of the projects. Could you give us your thoughts on what are the most, in your opinion or experience, the most exciting areas in real estate? Like you mentioned, hospitality. What do you think about commercial kind of property development, or even, let's say, more public oriented developments like hospitals, or any other thing like that. Could you give us your thoughts on the diversity of projects that you will be working on or are open to working
Well, the most exciting projects are the ones with the highest demand, and
on?
so it just depends on what it is. Our approach is to be fairly agnostic in terms of the type of project. We just want data to drive our decision. So we'll look at it and look at what is the demand, what are the basis for the assumptions going into why this project will work, and we'll verify it. That being said, as mentioned, one of the biggest needs and what typically fuels every other real estate development is housing. You know, if you have
Mhm.
housing places for people to live comfortably, that's going to fuel the public development, that's going to fuel offices, it's going to fuel other things. So housing is certainly a big one, and we think we'll focus a lot there. We think that's the space I personally know a little better, having worked in the apartment space in my last company. But we won't stop there. There's no limits on what we'll look at. As I mentioned before, it all just comes down to what the data says, and does the data support the models and what we would expect to see come from the real estate project.
Thanks for that. That's great. And so in terms of housing, if I know you've really touched on everything because you've been very detailed, but what do you think is the future of affordable housing in West Africa and in particular maybe Ghana, and how do you see ALD fitting into that future if possible?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that need to happen. One is to build more affordable housing, and that's where ALD will help. Is we will help to fund developers who are building more affordable housing projects. We will provide capital that'll make that possible for them to do that. The other
Okay.
is making it more affordable to owners to purchase the to purchase the property. So that it really comes down to financing products. Right now, there's no funding option. You know, everything is cash based. It needs to be purchased typically, up front. In some cases, maybe a year, 2 year installment schedules, but we're talking a lot of cash needed in a very short amount of time that most Africans won't have access to. It's very, very difficult to save up that kind of money and get to a point where you can actually pay the cash. It's still a very cash based system. There's not the kind of mortgage products available here, but that is changing. And Cecil's actually working on some exciting things in that realm as well, where mortgage products are becoming available to more and more um, African buyers. And so we're starting to see some of those mortgage products start to emerge. And that's going to be the other big thing is the um, more mortgage products. And for that, you need things like credit scores. You need ways to verify people's ability to pay. And we're seeing developments there as well. So as these things develop, mortgage products will become accessible.
So with the last question I'd like to ask is, what's the one thing you would tell, any investor, whether from the diaspora here locally in Ghana or in Africa, what would you tell them to, that would, really encourage them to sign up to the deal room and know that this is the way of the future for real estate investment?
Well, I first encourage them to do their own homework on
Yes.
investing. I mean, there's a financial literacy aspect here where
Mm,
you recognize the right ways to invest money. Putting money in a bank account, especially if you're holding money in CDs, means your
yeah.
money is going to depreciate very quickly with the way inflation's been. Some people think sticking it in real estate and building half of a house and letting that half of a house sit there for a long time is a good use of money, but that's not income producing. You are
Mm,
maybe protecting yourself against inflation,
yeah.
but anyone who generates real wealth from real estate recognizes that real estate should be income producing as well
Nice.
as in places where they'll get appreciation.
Mm,
But those two aspects are very important. And what I've seen with a lot of people is they feel like they want to be in control of the investment. Well,
mm,
there's a lot of work that goes into that, and often being in control means you're subject to your own judgment, and a lot of people don't know real estate well enough. It takes being in it a long time to get familiar enough with it. So the first thing is to do your own homework and understand the importance of investing in real estate in the right ways. And once you're there and you're convinced of that, something like African land developers, the deal room we've done with Seso is the is a great option because there's no obligation to participate or to invest. You can sign up for free. There's no cost to it. You review the deals on your own and you can pick the ones you feel good about, and you can diversify your own portfolio across different investments. The nice thing is they're all pretty short term, 12 to 36 months, and you get your money back with that return, and then you can deploy it into something else. So that's I mean, once you're there, but the deal room isn't going to be interesting to someone who doesn't first understand the right way to invest in real estate. So that's where you first just got to do some homework on what makes a successful investment strategy when it comes to real estate. What is the importance of investing? But if you know there, you're convinced, and you've got a little bit of money, you're ready to invest, whether you're living abroad or you're here locally, then the deal room's a great place to go because of how easy it is to sign up. You can look at your deals, look at our deals, and pick the ones you want to participate in. All of our investments and the way we manage our fund, it's all denominated in US dollar. And so even though in some of the deals we invest in, there is some work that needs to be done through local currencies, we manage that risk and we make sure it's done well. But by denominating in the US dollar, we can eliminate a lot of the FX risk that comes with investing overseas, and we can make sure that people can realize the returns that they're expecting.
That's great. And thank you for that explanation. And but lastly, where do you see African land developers in the next 5 years or more, 10 years? What's your vision for African land developers
Oh,
and
we
this?
we want to be. There's a lot of really exciting emerging markets, so we want to be the premier investment avenue. We see ourselves creating a whole new investment class for investors around the world,
Yes.
which is investment class of investing in African real estate. We see a lot of exciting markets that we want to be in here. We do a lot of homework before we get into a market, but we're very bullish on Africa generally, very bullish on the real estate. So we see ourselves creating an asset class that is accessible to people around the world, easy to understand, easy to participate in, and so we see ourselves kind of connecting that and leading the way in it.
That's great. That sounds exciting, and we're bullish on the future of real estate too. Thank you so much for being with us today. I think it's been an amazing and detailed and informative discussion on investing in real estate and also on the great work that Africa Land Developers is doing. Thank you so much, and I'm sure our audience have learned a lot. And maybe we'll talk again soon when there's new developments in the near future.
Yeah, I
Thank
hope
you.
so. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me, Victor.
thank you so much. Okay. And that's, folks, is another episode of the Africa Property Podcast with Cecil Global. Eric, one thing before you go. So with this program, it requires you to keep like not close the page right
Right.
after we end, so that
Yeah.
it can do some uploading.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
if you
see that. I'll keep it
yes,
open.
yes, thank you very much. Thanks so
Okay.
much. That was great.
You're
Honestly,
welcome, Victor. Yeah. Thank you
yeah,
for having me. You did a great job.
definitely.
Let's see
Thanks,
how it
thanks.
goes, and then maybe we can do another one.
Definitely, definitely. Have a great day and
All
say
right,
hello
my
to your
friend.
family.
You too.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.